Against a backdrop of rising energy prices and warnings of stagflation, French President Emmanuel Macron has renewed calls for Eurobonds, which is joint European debt issued by all 27 EU member states. But in Brussels, the proposal is being met with scepticism. For more, we can turn now to our Europe editor, Maria Tadeo, who joins me in the studio. Good morning, Maria. Tell us first, why is the French president proposing this now?
Well, Merit, this is something that it's not necessarily new coming from Emmanuel Macron, because he's always argued for this idea of a strategic autonomy for Europe. So this is a European Union that is able to operate independently in a global scenario, of course, in which you're seeing deep competition coming both from China, but increasingly the United States of America. He's always argued that in order to finance this autonomy, you will need joint debt. No single country in the European Union can do it alone. And obviously, we're talking about billions in investments. So it does make sense, and it matches his thinking that he's now put forward for many years. Nonetheless, the timing now, this is all looking into the June summit in which European leaders will gather in Brussels. Emmanuel Macron has already said for months that decisions, fundamental decisions when it comes to the European economy will have to be made. So they are trying to revamp the idea looking into this gathering. At the same time, you're seeing, and you just alluded to this at the start of the show, this is a very complex geopolitical but also macroeconomic scenario for the EU. The financing costs, obviously, when you look at interest rates, which are going up, the cost of energy related to the situation in the Middle East, this adds a sense of urgency when it comes to the French, but not just because a growing number of countries, including Greece, by the way, but also the Spanish, they have all argued when it comes to not just new debt, but also the repayment of debt that was previously issued, especially at the time of the pandemic. These payments should be delayed beyond 2026 because the urgency now means that the focus should not be on paying off debt, but actually investing in the future of Europe. What we should note, however, is that the German line, and that is crucial, has not really changed. They continue to say they're not in favor of more debt. The German chancellor insists that the problem in Europe is really about productivity when it comes to its companies, but it's beginning now to lay out the scene for deep fundamental economic matters, which are also going to include, of course, the European budget and another round potentially of simplification, so meaning cutting off more red tape. I spoke with the economic commissioner last week, and he said expect more measures in that sense.
And Brussels is also warning, Maria, that even if there's a peace in Iran tomorrow, there will be potentially very deep economic consequences. So what has the response really been like from them?
Yeah, and you're seeing now a growing number of European leaders, including the German chancellor, repeat that there is no exit plan from the U.S. It's not clear how this war is going to end. And at this stage, you have the Strait of Hormuz with the many ramifications that it has for the global energy market, which has been completely rattled by this war. It's under the grip of an Iranian regime that is totally volatile. We don't know who's actually leading these negotiations. And we're also seeing that the talks are not really making progress. So for the Europeans, the language has not really changed from it's a shock to now you are dealing with a crisis. Last week, the European Commission put forward measures, but it did not move the needle. There is a pressure still from the capitals that the Commission needs to do more. There's also criticism that some of the big measures, which could include, counting out some of the energy costs from fiscal deficits and debt, that should be tweaked, those parameters. There's also been now calls about suspending some of the green rules and legislations. There's been calls also about state aid. That can work for some countries, but not others which do not have the financial capacity to pay for it. So you're still increasingly seeing capitals are asking for more. I was at an economic forum over the weekend. The response that I got from the industry is that this is much more severe than the language that you hear from the institutions, and that they do want to see more measures, which for the time being have not come.
Okay, Maria Tadeo, thank you so much for that analysis for us.